This has just gone absolutely viral in China right now. Okay, we cannot show it to you. If you go to my Twitter, which is
at
SerpentZA, is it?
It's in the description.
It's in the description. If you go to my Twitter, you'll see my latest post. There's a link to this video. If you so choose to go and look at it, but again, this is something that I suggest you don't, unless you have to, or unless you're very curious. This will describe exactly what's going on there. Thanks. But basically, you've got a bunch of people having a good time, hanging out at a restaurant. This happens all the time. It's happened to us many, many times. You're just chilling out. Everybody, this is what people do. People don't really go to bars in China. Okay.
Well, I mean, they do.
Yeah, they do, but it's different. It's not like the bar and club culture.
No.
Bars and clubs in the West, that's where you go to drink.
Yeah.
In China, if you're going to go out for a night drinking, you go to a restaurant. Okay, you really do.
Person,
yeah, absolutely. Like my entire 14 years there, when I went to go
there's a shit ton of bars. I just want people to understand.
It's just not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same.
It's not the same. It's like a techno hole or something. You don't go there to sit down and have a drink.
Or talk.
Yeah. So people like to go sit at restaurants and they drink and, you can sit outside. It's nice and chat, play dice or whatever, right?
Sure.
That's what was going on. And this random guy and his buddies sitting outside, the guy comes in and he starts to basically proposition the women that are in there, right? So he walks up to one table and he's probably like saying, hey, come sit with us or whatever. And he starts picking on one girl and he starts pushing her around a bit, trying to grab her to take her outside, and she pushes back, okay? So she's like, no, not having any of this. She's sitting with her friends. She's just having a meal. Everything's fine. She's not doing anything weird. She's just there. So this guy then suddenly starts just attacking her, like badly, smashes beer bottle over her head, drags her. His friends come running in. They start throwing chairs. They start attacking all the women.
Yeah.
Like, it's violent. These guys went terrible, like horrible, horrible. Luckily, nobody died. Okay, got to put that out there. No one died. So far. Some of them are still in the hospital, but like they appear to be out of danger.
Sure.
But the guy is literally dragging the woman out by her hair, dragging her outside, smashing more beer bottles on her head, beating her, and kicking her head with his shoe. And,
other people joined in.
Yeah, other people, his mates are joining in, beating all the other women up in there and throwing their heads on the ground, doing all this disgusting stuff. Terrible, terrible. Awful, awful scene. And this is actually quite common in China.
Yeah, can I just say?
Yeah.
It's so common. It's not even funny. The thing is, I don't like how this story is getting attention because it's bringing attention to something, but it's like people treat it like some shocking, isolated incident, and it's so goddamn prolific in China.
Yeah.
It's not even funny. On a daily basis, you will see these videos. If you're on any sort of WeChat group or anything like that. Not only that, you'll see this happen around local cities and in restaurants and stuff. It's so ubiquitous and so common, the abuse of women in these scenarios and just brawls in general and these things. I think people think, oh, it's in Asia, so it's going to be a peaceful place or something. It's crazy.
No.
The street I used to live on, it's like a daily occurrance.
Yeah, I remember in Huizhou.
Right where I lived in my neighborhood. It was crazy.
I remember.
Meat cleavers flying.
Yeah, we'd be out there all the time. Yeah,
it's wild.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Anyway, I just want to say, all the attention should go on this. But I want the attention to continue because this is not something like, oh, justice for these guys alone. This happens so often. Yeah. So common.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. Now, the thing is, this garnered so much attention. Yeah. It's had hundreds of millions of views, as far as I know.
Yeah.
It's gotten tons of shares.
They couldn't shut it down in China. They couldn't shut it down. No. It was too popular.
It's gotten to a point where so much attention, and rightfully so, so many people are calling these guys beasts, but you got that othering thing where they're like, oh, but they're from East China, so it's like
whatever.
Whenever you get this kind of thing, they're like, oh, they're Eastern Chinese, so it's not, or they're from the north or whatever.
They're northern.
Yeah, but anyway,
northeastern.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, this is a terrible, terrible thing that's happened, and it's brutal, and you get to see the overly hyped up bystander effect that you get in China.
Yeah.
No one stepped in to help these poor women.
The thing is, like, this happened in Singapore, right? Mm-hmm. And like a meat cleaver incident, they always attacking each other.
That just happened in Shanghai. I'm not bringing it up in this. No, we're not going to bring it up, but
But anyway, this
happened like yesterday in Shanghai.
This happened in Singapore, right? And everyone ran to help. to stop him, ram him, stop the dude, like, cut him off from this. And these are ethnically Chinese people too.
Yeah,
it's not a race thing,
no, of
right?
course not.
It's the bystander effect from society, from the government, basically punishing people that get involved in stuff.
Yeah.
So what happens when you have an apathetic society?
Yeah, no, it's awful. So anyway, like I said, luckily all the women survived, but horrifically beaten with like beer bottles broken over them and stuff, so cut up, and it's awful, right? But because it went viral, the police did get involved, and they did actually capture the perps. So
the thing is, I don't want to celebrate the success of this.
No.
Because this happens so often where people get away with it. Do you know how many times people just get away with this?
Yeah.
It's all the time. It's ubiquitous, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, it only got attention, and then people will say, look at how the legal system in China, like they caught the bad guys and stuff because of whatever. They want to say like, oh, because of cameras, or because like Chinese cops are good or something like this. No, it's because China lost face and they couldn't shut it down.
No, they couldn't. Absolutely. So, I mean, the main perpetrator is the guy on the far left over there, okay, who's wearing the kind of jacket thing. He's the guy who came in and started harassing the women and stuff. The guy in the middle was the guy throwing chairs at people and so on, and the other guy was also heavily involved in beating people up and beer bottles and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, anyone who's lived in China who has WeChat,
you've seen this.
Seen it.
Anybody that's lived in China saw this story and like, oh, again?
Yeah, right. Exactly. The difference being that this time it went viral. It's the sort of number one thing going on in China right now. You can't avoid this story. No. Which is why we're bringing it to you, of course. And it's important to once again shine a spotlight on the plight of women in China.
Yeah.
I did a video about the plight of women in China where a similar situation to this, where a woman was dragged into a car and almost kidnapped and being beaten, like head being slammed in the door and stuff. And, it took forever for anyone to even like try to step in. And finally the guy just drove away. And luckily she didn't, do anything. But I've done a video on this. I've done a couple of videos on this. We've talked about this a lot. When it comes to women's equality in China, it's not really a thing.
It's used as propaganda, though, from the government. And actually people in the West that misunderstand it. That somehow think China has really good women's rights.
No.
It's awful.
It's terrible.
Awful. The men usually went out in this situation. They get away with huge amounts of abuse. Remember, that woman is being beaten next door to me. I called the cops, and the cops told me it was a family situation.
Yeah.
They completely backed out of it. And that's usually what happens.
Yeah, it's not good. So when it comes to domestic abuse and that kind of thing, I did another thing about that recently. Remember that guy who almost beat his wife to death, but it was on camera,
Yeah.
And the grandmother just kind of comes and watches it's normal and stuff, that thing. It happens. It's awful. So sometimes these terrible tragedies, which do happen very often in China, they need a spotlight shone on them.
Yeah.
They need to spark discussion because this is a part of Chinese society that needs to change.
Yeah.
There needs to be proper laws and repercussions because that's the problem.
Accountability.
You get this stupid Pig's Peak guy. We call them Pig's Peaks because, that's...
It's a long story.
Yeah, anyway, these Pig's Peak guys getting drunk and they go around, they get pushy, they want to have their way with whatever woman, they resist and they just beat them up and usually they can just go home and laugh about it later and it's okay.
Connections.
Yeah, that's not okay. You should be completely have the book thrown at you for assault and whatever else, attempted murder in this case, really. And examples need to be made because right now, too many people act with impunity. If you guys remember, Drew Pavlou in Australia was holding up that sign saying, "Screw your mother, Xi Jinping." And the guy assaulted his cameraman friend, tore his sign up. The guy didn't get any jail time. He got basically a community service and a $1,500 Australian dollar fine, which again, it shows you acting with impunity. And I mean, the reason why, when he was in court, he actually said like, oh, like this could affect my livelihood. And
no, you know what he also said?
What?
He unintentionally hugged those guys.
Yes, he said he unintentionally hugged him. Yeah. Meanwhile, if you watch the footage, he's like grabbing him, trying to grab his camera and destroy it.
Oh, I just want to love you.
Yeah, come on, seriously. The fact of the matter is, he is exactly this type of person. If you look at him, just his appearance and his behavior, he is one of these
that haircut,
thuggish,
it's that white T-shirt, it's that whole deal.
He's a thug, okay? And thugs, that kind of thug in China gets away with this kind of terrible behavior, and that's why he thinks he could do the same thing in Australia and get away with it. But because there are real laws in Australia, thankfully still are, real laws in Australia, he at least had to go to court. Now he's got a criminal charge against him. he has to pay a fine.
Probably won't do
And
it
he
again.
probably won't do it again. But that's the thing. You need to have repercussions to bad actions in order to stop certain types of people, especially people like this.
Right.
So I hope that these guys get the book thrown at them. I hope something big happens from this. And I really, really hope.
Might correct some behavior. Maybe.
Yeah, I really, really hope that this starts to become a thing in China where offenders like this don't get away with this
You
shit.
understand, though, and this is not me being pessimistic. This is me being realistic. In my experience in China, I think you'll agree with me that the outcome of this is not going to be that people will learn from this and that people will be punished more in the future. The outcome of this will be, let's scrub this faster off the internet and make sure no one sees it.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately the outcome of usually
yeah.
what happens.
No, I know. We'll agree with you on that.
Anyway.